Hi there, my name's Brett Hemphill. I'm a cave diver in Florida. I live in Zephyr Hills. And what I'm going to be talking about today is the exploration we did about 3 months ago at Weeki Wachee Spring in Florida. The dive consisted of 4 separate dives through an opening at 150 feet with approximately 100 cubic feet of water per second coming out of an opening that had a diameter of about 5 feet. Due to the drought in Florida, we were able to go through this opening and explore the cave beyond. It was since 1985 when earlier explorers managed to make their way into the cavern, but not past the end of the cavern due to depth, time, and technology. The rebreather that I took on the dive was a modified KISS Classic. The modifications I basically did to it were depth modifications, and how to add offboard gas to the unit. I also used redundant oxygens. The 3 most important parts of any dive below 200 feet are deepest depth, furthest linear penetration, and decompression. If you can't escape those 3 elements on a technical dive, then you need to re-examine the configuration of your rebreather. The question you need to ask yourself is, how many breaths of diluent would you be able to take off a bottle this small below 250 feet? The one component that allows you to stay on closed-circuit scuba is oxygen. Many of the rebreather companies out there you'll find that they'll have you bailing off the rebreather into a semi-closed mode or an open circuit mode when the loop on the rebreather is still capable of maintaining a fully closed circuit. In order to do that, you'll need oxygen. Well, what I've done to the KISS is I put a liner on the tanks. These tanks that are on the unit work as somewhat of a buttress to protect the low-pressure hoses, and this is a product called X-Liner. It goes on at 140 degrees and is much more impervious than the other well-known liner, which is called Rhino Liner. I also put it on the canister because coming up out of the precipice at Weeki Wachee, we have currents in upwards of 2 knots, and it really protected the canister in order to do that. So Corey at Salvo actually put this liner on his Meg and did a 4-hour dive at Ginny Springs. And because the Meg canister is aluminum, at the end of 4 hours, Corey found out that the insulative properties of the liner cut down its condensation by at least 90%. So it's basically on mine for thermal protection, but if you do have an aluminum canister on your rebreather, you can certainly cut down a lot of condensate that occurs from external temperatures and internal temperatures inside the rebreather. X-Liner. This represents both oxygens. Each oxygen is completely 100% manual. The oxygen cannot go into the loop unless I let it go in. Through this metering valve, the metering valve is dynamically rated to my balanced oxygen first stage, which basically means that from the time it's turned off till the time it's at the specific area that I need it in, it's less than a full 2 turns. If you look very carefully, you'll see that there's a small stainless steel nut that holds the gnarled tip on the metering valve, and that's my way of visually being able to tell where I am. If I have to question that, I turn it twice, it's off. I do 1 complete rotation, to go another 20. That's perfect metabolic consumption for myself. If I'm below 250 feet, I turn it back here. That's usually good for there. During decompression, I turn it there, and that's a wonderful thing for decompression. If I need to shut down that particular oxygen bottle altogether, I can shut it down from the metering valve, which also has a 50 micron filter, or I can shut it down manually right back here. The next valve is a pure manual oxygen bottle. There's the manual add there. It's a standard KISS valve, but I've capped the orifice, and it's purely manual. The real interesting thing about this rebreather is the intermediate pressure on the environmentally sealed first stage is set at 325 psi, which is equivalent to over 700 feet. So hypothetically, I could take this unit to 700 feet without making any modifications whatsoever. The spring in that particular first stage is one that I got from a friend who does springs for the military. I can't say much more about that. The open circuit BOV that I'm using right now is made by Golem Gear. The reason I chose this one is because obviously the diaphragm is facing down. It's the interspiro diaphragm, and it's impervious to a lot of flow from scootering. It's really important to have a good chin rest when you're scootering. Any torque that you might experience during scootering can cause a lot of stress in the mouth area. They make a great second stage. The one that comes standard on a KISS is a wonderful second stage for diving in and above 200 feet. I use the Cooper hoses, great hoses. They really still need hose guards. And as far as injecting diluent into the rig, this is my primary diluent. it goes to the gas block. The gas block will work the BOV and the ADV. Should I need to get off the gas block or change, I can change. It's a pure pneumatic connection, so I can put that on as many bottles as I want. If I have any transitional bottles, I could put on an oceanic fitting or some of the other fittings they have available to the general public. A lot of people will see this fitting and the first thing they'll say is, oh, it's an open circuit fitting. Remember, if you have a BOV, it's also a demand valve. You can add gas instantly. Another thing that a lot of technical divers should know is if you're ascending quickly on a scooter, this is a great way to blow out gas and make quick adjustments versus blowing gas out of your nose or around the mouthpiece. And it's really important, I feel, to be able to backpedal several different ways before you alleviate the closed circuit ability of the loop. Remember, if you haven't got to go to semi-closed and you can stay in a closed circuit mode, you can only do so by having a redundant oxygen. And a lot of technical divers really need the ability of staying on that loop, staying in a full closed circuit mode. I got a real good feeling that after a couple of years, you're going to see more and more technical divers diving below 200 feet with redundant oxygens and bailouts that are pneumatically connected. Back to Weeki Wachee. What we managed to do in Weeki Wachee is within 4 dives, we explored 6,800 feet of cave at an average depth of 250 feet, max depth 403 feet. On the last dive, I was followed by Paul Heinrich and Corey from Salvo. We went to 403 feet, laid 800 feet of line at an average depth of 375, came back up to a depth of 270 feet and put in an additional 1,000 feet of line. At this particular stage, Weeki Wachee, the flow at Weeki Wachee has gone back up to approximately 138 CFS through that opening, which is impossible to get through, but we're hoping sometime in March we'll be able to go back. And just want to tell the general public that the KISS is a very sound and a very safe cave diving tool, and that the necessity for having lights and double gauges and double computers really isn't necessary when you're diving this type of rebreather. We all went into the water at the same time. We all experienced the comforts of a rebreather, and by the time we were done, we all walked out of the water at the same time. So everybody keep on having safe rebreather dives and push the limits. Have a good day.